Hello and welcome to this edition of Treasure Hunting America. I'm your host, Mark Hendricks. And over the next half hour, we're going to hear some amazing stories of everyday treasure hunters across the country. People who are turning up antiquities and vast caches from yesteryear. Perhaps the most famous of these treasure hunters is Jimmy Sierra. He's famous for the goat doctor and the Sierra hoard finds in Northern California. And he has a passion for this hobby like few others.
Well, I first got introduced to a metal detector when I was in the Korean War. We had minefields all around us, and I saw people using metal detectors to locate the mines and clear paths. And I thought, gee, that's pretty interesting. Came back to my job as in pharmacy and raised a family, 3 children, dogs, cats, the whole works. One day, I picked up the newspaper and saw a story about a fellow who found a gold coin 5 miles from where I was raised on a farm. So I called him up on the phone, and at first he was apprehensive, but he warmed up and told me which detector he bought and took me out and showed me how to use one, and that was the end of my pharmacy career. I started selling them in my pharmacy, and about 3 years later, I said, that's it. I'm just going to sell the pharmacy, start doing metal detecting full time.
Just 2 years after retiring, Jimmy Sierra made a name for himself by hunting after a treasure legend called the Goat Doctor's Hoard.
On Halloween 1980, I think it was, I dug up a old Wells Fargo bag. It was rotted out with 2,200 silver coins, mostly silver dollars. And at the time, silver was very high. It was $48 an ounce. And so that was a valuable hoard. It was stolen from me within 2 months later. I missed not having it around to remind me of the excitement, because every time I looked at it and showed people, it was exciting. But I went back the following Halloween and uncovered 2 more hoards. After I had done my job on most of the local parks and old playgrounds, I decided to go to greener pastures, and I headed for the motherlode, because on the West Coast, California particularly, that's where the history was. So I started by going to the old ghost towns, where there was not ghost towns, live towns, but old towns, and I found lots of old stuff. I've never thought of looking for gold. I was looking for what the gold miners left behind. When detectors got proficient enough to be able to eliminate mineralization, some adventurous soul decided they'd go look for gold nuggets, because he figured if there were gold nuggets found here, maybe he could find one. And lo and behold, it opened a whole gold rush. So I headed up to the mining country and really realized early on that the miners left behind as much gold, and probably there's more still up there, deep in the ground, than was ever taken out. In fact, that's a fact. But they left behind a lot of gold because they didn't have metal detectors. Even the Chinese who mined were so thorough, couldn't see under the ground, and they couldn't see through mud. And I found a 20-pound piece of quartz with 2.5 pounds of gold in it. I think if a Chinese miner had his hands right on this rock, which had one hunk of gold about the size of a silver dollar sticking out of it, and it was so covered with mud he didn't even look, he threw it on the pile, luckily, and left it there for me. Some of this gold in streams that we've hunted are very small, because the water and rocks have beaten that gold to pieces, and it becomes gold dust. We're not going to run out of gold. There's plenty of gold if you have the energy and the interest, and the main thing is get there before somebody else does. That's the key. Well, I've chosen to hunt today out on this creek with a little bit of water in it. This summer this will be bone dry, but it is a creek in the motherlode, the central motherlode, and used by the old 49ers, 1850s, 1849, and they pretty well cleared this creek out, as I understand it, right down to bedrock, and then worked the bedrock in from the center into the bank. Now, they left a lot of nuggets behind, as we know. No matter where we hunt, we're always going to find some gold that the old 49ers left behind. If I hear that's a good signal. Full 100%. This is a piece of bedrock, so it's a good place.
After finding a target, Jimmy uses his prospecting tools to dig up the ground for a closer look.
Let's see. Oh, it's in my cup already. First scoop, by golly. Let's check the hole. Sometimes there's... No, that's the target right there. Okay, let's see. A lot of muck in here. No sandy soil. Okay. get some of this. Here we go. Now let's see. Never throw the rest of it away. It could be more than one target. That's what we got to go for. Still in my cup. Whoa. Up there, exposed right here. Here we go. It's got some mud in it, but it is a little guy. A little guy, 5 or 10 grains. It's a thick little guy. Here we are. Here we are. Nice little piece of placer gold. That's free gold. That's been river run for centuries. Broken out of quartz at some point in time in the millennium. And there she is. There it is.
Jimmy Sierra has had a lot of success in finding lost treasure in California. Now he's expanded his horizons to find antiquities in England.
After having just about every adventure I can think of except go to Australia, I zeroed in on England, primarily because American history is tied to England right off the bat. And their history in England goes back over 2,000 years in coinage alone. And into the Celtic period, say 200 BC is just about the coinage. And Bronze Age, 1500 BC, I found a Bronze Age spearhead over there when I got going doing it. I decided on England because it's absolutely supported by the archaeological community for the most part, and we work with museums, and I have a partner over there. We decided to bring Americans over because I figured if I like it, it's so exciting to go into a field and find 2,000 years span of history in one field, because they all lived one civilization upon itself. The Romans were there for 400 years, so we find lots of Roman coins, Roman silver or Roman gold. We've only found 2 Roman gold coins. We dig about 7,000 pieces of metal, 1,700 pieces of artifact and coin over 300 years old. It is an extension of what we do here, with just like cake with all the frosting instead of just a little small cupcake.